I am particularly delighted to see my sisters and brothers from the north, the east, and the different provincial councils, because this is a dialogue we have never if ever, rarely had. And I must congratulate One Text initiative, which is about trust. I think we have trust in very few things nowadays. A platform for dialogue and for options. So it is very interesting that which follows the normal pattern, that when we talk of women, who constitute 51% of the population in the world and in our country a little more, that the session is always at the end of the whole program. We have had this, it has been for the last 30 odd years, 40 years, it's important. And I will tell you why it is important. So I'm going to hold you, you all don't have much of an option. This is one of the very good situations where we have a balance of women and men. Because normally, we have a lot of women in the audience. When you say women something, including I talk very often around the world to judges around the world, and very often it's the women judges. And the men judges, I think they have more important things to do. Now, first of all, so the topic, you know what I'm going to talk about is about the Millennial Goals, and that was the original topic I was given, which I'm going to talk about, and what have we done about it. But I wanted to know how fast the world is changing today. So all of you in this audience who are making decisions about the future, remember those of you who were born between 46 and 54 are the baby boomers. Probably few of us here, right? You are far too young for that. But then we have Generation X, who are the latchkey generation. That is those between the 60s and 70s, because for the first time, women started going out for jobs. And when they went out for jobs, the children had to let themselves in, so they kept the latchkey or the door key under the carpet. So they opened the door, they went in, and they were a very lonely set of children. And they were called, therefore, the Generation X. Then we have the Millennials. And I think a lot of you, looking at your faces, I don't know what your ages are the Millennials, who were born in 1981 to 1989. Then there is Gen Z, who is the true digital natives. And whether we like it or not, today, everything is going digital. You have phones, you know what the phones are doing, you know how you carry it around with it. These are born after 1990, and between 1990 and 2019. And the next generation, which is just beginning, are the babies who are born, called the Alpha generation. That is the generation after 2020. Now, I don't know how much you know about Millennial Goals, and I'm going to go on the assumption that I'm just going to quickly go over these. So we have 8 original Millennial Goals, which the United Nations set, and these were 191 UN countries, member states, signed on to it, and this is really the boring stuff. So then we passed that time, we said, definitely we would have achieved this by the 1990s, but we didn't achieve it. So then we went to the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. And that too, the United Nations says, well, this was from the conference in Rio de Janeiro, and they said, these are operative, this is going to be done, and by 2000, we will, the year 2000, that is this year, we are going to tackle the indignity of poverty. And we know in South Asia how well this question of poverty has been tackled, as in everywhere else. Of course, we also have new things, like perhaps if Trump wins again, we'll have another poor America. So maybe poverty is increasing across the world. So the question about this is, the basic questions about women is a lack of empowerment. So we are talking about power, right? Everybody will say, who wants to be president? Everybody will say, well, I'd like to be president. Why? The power, right? That comes with it. We all in different ways. We study to achieve a position of power. We want to do well in our jobs and come up because we want to achieve a place of power. So it is about empowerment. Now the theme today is understanding leadership. Leadership by women, and to do that, empowerment of women. Because I work with the women in Jaffna, and I found I think they are very strong. You all have come out of the war in the north and the east as very strong women, but very little leadership, I'm afraid. I think you really need to have real strong women leaders in those areas. So understanding leadership and empowerment, this can be a collection of individual traits, like a woman who has charisma, a woman who is smart, a woman who is, walks into a room and everybody looks at that person and says, oh, she is smart, she's good in her work. That is one way, the personal trait. The second is the process and behavior to manage relationships and goals. This relates to variables such as the ability to influence, direct, constructive coercion, and inducement for positive change. How do we become leaders? How can we drive people? How can we be their role models? I wish that every one of you in this room, including the men, would be role models, right? So you're driving change, you're leaders, because you're simple enough, you're humble enough to come to a seat in this room and start learning. And that is what is important, the humility that goes with it. And that means you are on your first step to leadership. So leaders are seen as a catalyst of constructive change. A leader is an agent of change. Now, you have to go through these things because, I won't start about domestic violence or women are getting beaten up. I have a completely new angle of approaching the problem we have because this is the 20th century, right? So studies in women and girls and empowerment and leadership places an emphasis on characters which promote personal and collective change among followers and the general society. However, it should be noted that recognizing women to specially bring qualities of leadership such as collaboration, cooperation, collective decision-making, and relationship building would essentially play into the long-standing gender stereotypes. So they will look at the women and say, okay, what are we going to delegate to the women? Child rights? You take it. Women's right? You take it. Perhaps, cooking. And so when the allocation of those power structures come in, you look for the women. I'm giving you this example because the Attorney General I was a prosecutor. I began my life as a prosecutor. So when the 18,000 indictments, which is the backlog of child abuse cases were in the Attorney General's department. All sexual abuse, incest, rape, pedophilic relationships, pornography, children. 18,000 cases was the backlog. And the Attorney General appointed a group of 15 amazing women. And they were paid less than what, they're not even state council. They dispatched this large number of indictments and now they're in the high courts, right? But you can just imagine the trauma for those women. Every case you open is a case of incest, is a case of rape, is a case of multiple rapes, gang rape. They had to handle these cases and those cases are now in the court. And I don't know how we are going to handle it in the courts. That's the matter for the Chief Justice. For an example, traits of personality models imply that females have special, innate or inborn characteristics or qualities as opposed to leaders having skills and styles of approach to leadership which has been cultivated by personality development. You see Obama, you speak good speakers. Even in South Asia, we have brilliant speakers who speak because they have developed a skill. But women have certain inborn characteristics. They will walk in. They will say, how are you? Have you had your cup of tea? Qualifications, concern, service-oriented. And unfortunately, society doesn't quite recognize that as important for leadership. So we have the childhood experiences and we have individual formal leadership skills. Now those are political entrepreneurship. And I truly wish every woman in this room who has come from the provinces will end up being governors, chief ministers, and work for it. Work for it. There is absolutely no barrier for you coming there. So you need to network. That's important. You need to participate in public life. Don't just go there and sit. You have your ideas about it. You may put it in a different way. You may not put it as brilliantly as somebody who has, 10 degrees or something, and you can't understand anything that person says because it comes through arrogance. But you can, in your own way, seek that leadership position, and I wish you well, right? So we have home environments, access supportive incubators. You have family connections, you should have interrelational ties, you have paid and voluntary work you can do, and voluntary work is one of the steps towards coming up the ladder. And you ask the lady from the university, you ask her, she will tell you the students, the volunteer, you suddenly find this true, they are volunteering, they are coming, and you suddenly, hey, this student is really smart. That is what it's about, leadership. Getting noticed, not in an ugly way, not in a bad way, not in a sexual way, but in a way that projects you as somebody who has to be taken note of. Don't give up. A drop of water that falls on the rock, be that drop of water falling on the rock. Because eventually, the rock will get indented, and there will be a mark. So you make your mark on the world. So political landscape. Why is female leadership important? Women constitute more than half the population, but their representation is wonderful in Sri Lanka. You agree? Isn't it great in Sri Lanka? Really? Really? How many women are there in parliament? Yeah, that's great, is it? You have 51% women in the country. Who is representing you? So, but their representation is marginalized, is small. And the women who are there are not giving leadership to the women, to the concerns of women about watching how does a working mother look after the children who doesn't have monies to hire nannies and everything. What about crashes in the workplace? What about education for my child? What about health requirements? Despite the proportional representation system having improved, it has not succeeded in making a significant change in the term, actually affecting a higher percentage of women. The strong female force in political and policy making sphere is disastrous. Male politicians and makers and legislation might not prioritize gender sensitive issues in their agendas. We have one of the highest amount of domestic violence. During COVID-19 situation, every police station said, every hospital said, every grammar sevika said, it is going through the roof. And what is the reply for what we built in 40 years? The women's desk, all those structures just got wiped out because it was all COVID-19, right? So what was left? Women who were abused till they broke their limbs, till they suffered, and they had to be. And these can be your daughters, because today there is more violence against professional women than anybody else. And parents are coming to me and saying, what do we do? We never thought this man is from a good background. Why is he beating my daughter up like this? And now, of course, I think the shame is less, and people are saying, don't tolerate it. Just get out of it. We didn't bring you up to be beaten up by anybody or to be abused physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever. So, now, we have issues which have never been taken up by Parliament. It was with great difficulty that we passed the Domestic Violence Act. And it was because of a man, Dr. Shiranee, stood up for us women and spoke. You know about that. And then marital rape and various things are very serious social issues, because it makes women crippled. It cripples the women when you have to go to work every morning, every evening, knowing you're coming back to abuse. Not necessarily physical abuse, emotional, economic. I mean, there are many, I have had thousands of such cases. And I look at this and I think, this is not human behavior. The level of power and control they need, because those men themselves mostly have grown up in an environment where they saw their mothers beat up the fathers beat up their mothers. They lived in violence. I must have, when I was a prosecutor, it was my boast I sent. We were like that in the Aegis department. How many necks did you get? What do you mean by necks? How many people you sent to the gallows? So we would boast and say, I had 92 necks, because sometimes there are 15 accused who are sent to the death sentence because they were all involved in a murder case. So we'd say, I have 92 cases. Of that 92 cases of people I sent to the gallows, 90 of them stood up and made a statement called the allocutus at the end, before you're sentenced to death in courts. You put off the lights and the court is very silent. And then everybody stands up and the judge stands up. And then you read the allocutus saying, you shall be taken from here and you shall be hanged. But before that, he makes his allocutus and he always says, I watch my mother getting beaten up. I watched this happening. I was angry. I could never control my anger. And this little thing, I don't know why I murdered so-and-so. So we are not dealing with the cause of the illness. We are treating those who come with wounds, who have broken bones through the hospitals. We are not dealing with the cause. And who is interested in? Who's the man who stand up there and talk to us about it? Who's represent us and say, this is priority number one, a healthy nation, right? The lack of support of leaders without a lineage political backing. Look at our leaders in South Asia. First woman. How did they come to become first women? Because there were some important male persons. I mean, if you in South Asia, and we have done this study, they are either mothers, or their wives, or their daughters, mistresses sometimes, right? But these are the people who are getting the power. I have watched Nimalka walk when she was like 21 years old, from village to village. I was teaching at that stage. I was talking about women's rights. And there was Nimalka, like today, coming in, running, sweating. Why is she not a politician? You think there aren't enough articulate women? And I suggested one day to a politician, you take all the women working in the banks, give them 2 years leave, put them in parliament, and you see the whole paradigm will change. They will fight for their children, their education, health, transport, abuse in the buses, sexual harassment. They will fight for it. And we have these people. They are here. And this is, I would like at the end of it to show you that I'd like to start a story about the invisible women. There are variables that affect, and there are two reasons. One is enabling factors, and the other is disabling factors. So the enabling factors is every woman in this room knows what it is to get up in the morning, run. I wonder whether the young men know that today, because I see the young men. You know, I watch them. It is the most wonderful transformation. I watch them feeding their children. When I grew up, if my husband carried my child, they'd immediately say, poor man, he's henpecked, he's this, he's that. You know, so we were, you know, he was great. He would help me with anything, but not in public. And I said, please don't carry the baby in public. They will say that I'm a henpecking wife. Because this is the kind of thing, you know. But the young men today, hats off to them, and I also think the women are working, and they're working shoulder to shoulder, are honestly taking the milk bottle and feeding the baby in the office. We have men like that, and I salute those men, and that's what's going to be the future. So those of you who think you're going to escape it, you're wrong. So, and the patriarchy system, you know, this has been hackneyed. What is patriarchy? It is not about men. It is about a system that does not recognize the value and the empowerment of women, who doesn't seek even to talk about it, because everything is made. And I'm going to, because I want to reach to that point of my presentation to you, that I won't spoil it by talking about it now. So we have different types of violence. You know all this: psychological violence, sexual violence, physical and economic violence. You have the labor problem. Much of Sri Lankan registration originates from the perception of the need to protect women. So you're not given a job because that boss who's going to interview says, no, this is a job that is a sales rep, and you have to go all over the place. So I don't want to expose this pretty little girl who might get abused on the way. They don't need that protection. They need the job. They need that job, right? So we say everything is on meritocracy in our country. This is what you see. Can you see that? Can you see this cartoon? The barriers women have, but we say meritocracy, right? Now, we think, okay, in the future we'll have a better time. Everything is going to be okay. Why? We have artificial intelligence. And I don't know how educated you are on artificial intelligence. It is present, it is there. Have you heard of driverless cars? Right? So the world is going artificial. You know, you take your phone, it's full of artificial intelligence, right? But do you realize that your phone was made for a man's palm? Have you often, women, found that your phone is too big for your palm? Do you find that? This phone, you know, I find it's far too big for my palm. I'd really like a dainty little one which I can hold nicely. I wonder who designed this. fit me. So, today, and this is important, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. What are the other 3 revolutions? First industrial revolution was they used water from steam to make power, to mechanize, that is trains and things. The second industrial revolution used electric power. The third revolution started scratching the glass ceiling by the use of electronics and information technology. And this is what is important. We are today in the fourth industrial revolution, and is now upon us building on the third, where a digital revolution has occurred with the characterizations of fusion of technologies and artificial intelligence. Blur the line between the physical, digital, and the biological spheres. So what is AI learning? I love electronics. From the time in '85 when this came out, I was one of the first judges to go for a programming on computers. I just love it. I love the way it's developing. And I'm amazed at what potential it has. So what is AI or machine learning? Simple. Machine learning is based on data-driven algorithm decision-making, or ADA, systems, and is today used across a wide range of contents by both public and private sectors to inform or automate decisions about individuals. In a few years, and it won't take long, you will have in Parliament robots with artificial intelligence who will begin by assisting the politician and saying, sorry, what you're saying is wrong. It's too long-winded. This is how you say. Second, you will have everything you're taking, your drinks. We are at the moment in what is called the Internet of Things. Very soon, you will be in the Internet of Everything. Because we go and we can order our coffee, so you go and you buy your cup of coffee. Embedded in it is the artificial intelligence. So the next time you go, they will tell you, you are having Nescafe with 2 spoons of sugar, milk. You're having black coffee with no milk. That will automatically come up on the computer. And when it comes on, that will be eventually, that is the internet where we are now. We can do it. It's just that people are not going into that technology, but the moment you step out of this country and you get into an airport, you get into the British airport, you get into Dubai, everything is automated. Those who travel, I think the ministers and them who do a lot of traveling, that is what happens, right? So you go, everything is automated. You put your passport, it's automated. And if you get stuck, there is no one to help you. Now, part of this revolution is that, did I read everything to you? Yes, the digital data contemporaneously use is a task specific. People are going to ask you about this, right? So learn the terms. Task specific AI and image recognition systems, and they outperform humans. Forget the women. They outperform the men too. Due to complexity, inability to provide clear reasons for their output. 3, inevitably there will be a mistake. And 4, seriousness of consequences. We should be insisting on explicit legal authorization or scrutiny. Part of this revolution is that artificial intelligence and similar technologies will be used to drive economic growth. That will be the future. I love the way the conversation went, about following South Asian patterns. And but don't you realize it is already here? And we are like a little, frog in a whale. We don't even know that this is happening. So part of this strategy that artificial intelligence, similar tech, we use to drive economic growth, development, and positive societal change. With the increase of automation, routine, intensive occupations are like to be and this is the big thing. You're looking for jobs for those in your electorate, in the provinces, robots will come in, and you will have no say in the matter, right? Thereby, the effect of the digital divide will widen. This can cause unparalleled harm to women. Why do I say it? I'm going to give you examples, but remember this slide. It is called the reference man. So when you're developing artificial intelligence and everything, you use the reference man. Okay? So if I look around this room, who's going to be my reference man? I'll look for a middle-aged, well-built, tall gentleman, attentive, intelligent gentleman, and I'll say, This is my reference of a man. Now, digitally, they build all the systems, artificial intelligence, everything. Now, they're producing clothes, they're producing shoes, they're producing military wear, they're producing everything. Caucasian, he's a white man, 70 kilograms in weight. He's the superpower man. Muscles well built, no stomach, no slouching, strong man. And he represents everybody. He's a British detective. They have found that you'll all have seat belts and you have airbags in your car, right? Any of you all driving the old cars with no airbags and with no seat belts? Okay, so you all obviously have money, so you have the newer cars. You're in political power, so you have access to good vehicles, I hope. And now what is happening? All those tests, the car crash tests, use this man, the reference man, right? Then they found this was just not working for women. Why? Because the seat belts did not take into account the breast tissue of a woman. So what happens? When a woman who has breasts, big, larger breasts, gets into the vehicle, she just puts the seatbelt under her arm. That's death. That's accident, right? Reference man is 6 feet tall, a British detective, and he was the pinnacle of human activity. Pregnant women. Your car is not made to put the seatbelt around the tummy of a pregnant woman. No. Women have a habit of sitting. How many of you are women drivers? All of you are women drivers, right? Okay. So when you sit on the car seat, they have found there's a difference in the position men and women sit. And women sit a little forward in the seat. Why? Because like her, like you, shorter legs. We want to, right? All the women are smiling. Do the men know that before they came in here, right? So women sit forwards. But the reference man sits on that. And that is what on all the electronics are made on that. What was the result? Much higher risk for women in a frontal car crash. 47% more women are likely to have serious injuries and 17% more likely to die. 17%. These are statistics. Go home and Google it. 17% are more likely to die. You have daughters? Your mom drives? Tell them about this, right? So why? Because then they said in 2015, the European women got together in Europe and they said, we are going to take women into, because women were making a huge fuss around, because now we have women scientists up there. And they made a huge fuss. They said, okay, we are going to take this in and we are going to scale down and we are going to think of the smaller proportions of women. What did they do? They took the male reference man, made him shorter, made him slimmer, and put him there. Again, that doesn't answer our problem with our breast tissue. It doesn't answer pregnant women. It doesn't answer. So they had it, they spent a lot of money, and they said, why do they say, well, women are just, they're so different. They have so many pieces and things sticking out. It's very difficult to accommodate women. So it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. Artificial hearts. Because it was built on the reference men, only 20% women were found to be suitable for the artificial heart, where 80% of the men were found to be suitable. Why? There are no tests involving women, right? So this is a very serious thing. Airbags. They tested dummy had dimension of the adult reference man. It took 30 years before a female test dummy was used to measure the impact of airbags on women. More than 200 women died because of the explosion of airbags. That is the impact. You all know COVID-19, right? Now, because of COVID-19, most countries, I think even Sri Lanka is trying to go Mars, and they are trying to go that way. They are having robots build this. So what about this protective equipment? It is built for men's bodies. The shoulders are far too broad. Can you see what is happening when they wear this? Look at the injuries, because the masks cut into their cheeks here. And the caps that are worn are for the men. So it doesn't stop here, it comes all the way here. And these are the problems. And it is interesting what they have tweeted, how the masks don't fit them. The lady says, I need stilts to wear this protective equipment. So why? Because the reference man is what they are using. A limitation of this study is the decision to test each mask on a single man. And they need to take the women and test it on the women so that they make those same apparel. So the use of one common individual allows for testing of a larger quantity of masks in a short period of time, which addresses the urgent need for hospital infections and preventing disease. Right. Artificial intelligence today can predict 5 years ahead of the time that you're going to have a heart attack, right? But it doesn't work for women. Because they say, well, this is because men get heart attacks. They haven't taken the statistic which says women, younger women who get heart attacks are 90% more likely to die. That statistic has not been taken. This is the cooker. This is what all of us don't know, this type of life. Perhaps Nimalka and I, walking in those villages, walking in the jungles, walking all over to the poor homes, we know what those village women are using. Cooking on 3 stones on the floor. Cooking in gas fires in tiny little rooms. Now what happens because of this? Household air pollution. And that is like taking 400 cigarettes and smoking it in this tiny room. That is the health hazard, right? So, the effect of household air pollution is like being in a room where 400 people are smoking cigarettes. It is unclean cooking fuels. Because of traditional gender roles, women and girls are primarily kept in the household. Women have less control over how the household money is spent and have less choice of the type of food or the cooker that they are using. As a result, men are disproportionately impacted by HAP and due to unclean cooking. And you know what is strange about it? We are not, did you know before you came into this room, this is happening to our village women? Did you, the women political leaders, are you aware? Should this not be a priority to you? So what happened? The economic structures of the world got together and said, we must drive this poor, you can imagine all these big husky white men getting together and saying, oh, we have to do something. Let's do something for the poor women who are dying in Asia and Africa, cooking over these cook fires. And they said, what is this? Despite our efforts for change, the Bangladeshi women prefer to use pollution cooking. What can we do? Because they don't get their fingers spoilt. They don't know to go and sit down on a floor with that woman, because that's where she's used to sitting, and discuss and ask her, what do you think is your solution here? They are trying to introduce cookers, and the cookers were all this kind of, the cookers we sometimes get out of metal, where you have to cut the wood to a particular size. Men don't cut wood. Women gather wood. Women cut the wood. They found added to everything else, they have additional chores. But they did get in the women at some point. And the women said, very simple. Take those 3 stones, keep a metal thing on top of it, and cook it. You're not inside the household, you're outside. So gender disparity during the 4th revolution, I like to say this, is going to cost lives. This is the tip of the iceberg. I could do another 20 slides on this. With regard to the shoes, the army wear, the medicines, the cytotoxic drugs, all kinds of things. So when artificial intelligence comes, it is already coming, and it's going to come into the factories where the women are working. Who are the people who are going to be out of jobs? Women. Are we preparing for it? Are we preparing for those who are 51 people? Imagine you are in your position as politician today because these women voted for you. There is no other priority you have than helping the poor and helping the disempowered people. So it is important women are completely underrepresented. See that the women go into science, technology, engineering and electronics, and maths. These are get every girl in every school, everywhere, to please start maths, economics, the younger women generations. And you take a course. There are lots of courses, I think, which you run in your university, do you not? You run courses for adults. Go and take a maths course. Go and take an electronic course. Challenge you today to do that. I have done it. I have done it. I think I learned more after I retired than I did before. So it's important. I did a fellowship in judicial education and artificial intelligence just 2 years ago in Canada. And imagine me, these young little fellows going into university and study. I did it because I felt I was interested in it. It's the future. So the most important thing we have to remember is this digital gap is going to cause social and cultural problem. It is going to cause women to lose their jobs. It is going to cause women to fall sick. They're going to become invisible women in the future development unless you join hands with them. So how do you represent? So I just want to touch on AI and say, how much AI do you want? It's the freedom to choose how to live. That's all we need AI for. Can we live better? For that we need AI. But not, and the tools, that is you may have a gadget with, like cut your coconuts easily. Those are important. But don't open the doors of this country to that kind of AI which is going to lose jobs. There's no point of a life. You take it from me. I have done more labor cases than most judges. There's no point of your life if you don't have a livelihood. Remember that. And you are here today because people who were fighting for their livelihood gave you their vote. So AI is helping solve global problems, and we'll do so increasingly. More and more we'll have driverless cars. You will sit in your car and do all your homework in the back seat while you're driven by car. This is coming in. AI is creating global problems and may do so increasingly. We cannot define good as a fixed objective in the real world. The standard models for AI leads to loss of human control. A new foundation for probably beneficial AI is possible. We have to think about it. We have to talk about it. We have to educate our women about it. We have to educate ourselves. Because today, if I had given this lecture not 10 years ago, there would not be one woman in this room. How privileged you are. I wish I could get Nimalka to come here and you'll talk about what you did. You work from home. I know you all have done that. I know you have gone from place to place because yours is not a life of privilege. You have juggled with homework. You have juggled with your professional work, and you have worked hard for this. You have all kinds of problems. And you need a life that is free of problems. You need a life. So how can you life that gives you leadership? It is vital to ensure that you as women, there is female representation within the management committees and strategic and policy making levels of companies to create a gender balance. I think more than this, I just need to tell you something more. You all are going in your work. You're going to go back from here and are going to select committees. Committee for water resources, committee for housing. Please see that there is a gender balance in it. That there are the older, more experienced people in your group. There are the younger, men and women. See if you can make it as close to 50-50. I promise you. I promise you from this platform. I promise you with the strength and courage that I had to have when I gave a decision 1:8 against one of the most powerful politicians we had in this country, which took so much of courage and cost me, believe you me. But I'm telling you, a change will occur. You will become a better politician, the country will become a better place, and the priority of needs will be the real priorities. Health, education, safety, travel. These are the important things. Reach out with love, with courage, with commitment. And I know you can do it. Now I have a face to these women who are politicians. Get together. There's a lot of strength. Ask the men to come and join you, 50-50. Get the good men. There are a lot of good men out there. Not the kind of men who, like we saw recently in the Air Lanka, who brought a woman before him and then asked her, do you F your husband in the night? We don't want that. We don't want that in our community. It's a disgrace. We want respect. And if you can give me one reason why you can't respect your women colleagues, why you can't share partner to partner with them, then I will listen to you. They are not vessels. They are intelligent beings having a different aspect of life. They bring that into the picture. And because they bring it, it is a richer country, it is a richer government, and it is a richer people that we have in our nations. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.